Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to, or back to, as the case may be, the Information Warfare Pavilion. I'm going to do a quick intro here because we don't need to do long intros. You can read their bios online on Navy.mil if you want to really look it up. But we're delighted to have the Department of the Navy Chief Information Officer, Ms. Jane Rathbun, here, along with her Deputy Barry Tanner. And so I'll just leave it straight to them. The floor is yours.
Okay, mic on? Can you hear? Okay, welcome. Good afternoon. We're going to try to entertain you, so I asked Barry to join me on stage so that we could walk through ISV 2.0 with you all. Some of you might have heard this on Monday, but we're going to hopefully make this a little entertaining for you and hopefully of great value to you. So about 4 years ago, we wrote the ISV, the Information Superiority Vision 1.0, under the leadership of Aaron Weiss when he was the CIO and I was his Chief Technology Officer. And we had a core objective of securely moving data from anywhere to anywhere. That core objective is still solid today. We're not moving away from that. But what we did is we learned over the last 4 years a lot of stuff. We implemented a lot of things. We had some successes, some failures. Industry has kind of pivoted their focus. Has anyone heard of this thing called a large language model, AI? Industry, it's everywhere. And everybody in our organization wants some of it. So, and we learned that, and with Zero Trust, we learned that cybersecurity is really critically important, and how we design around Zero Trust has made us rethink a lot of things about where we should be headed. And so that drove us to create 2.0. But in 1.0, we were focused on modernize, innovate, and defend, where data and workforce were supporting elements. At the time, it was really important to modernize. We had a great plan set out in 2019 to get after our networks first and then move up the stack. And then COVID happened. And we realized that we couldn't get after our networks. We needed to get people to work remotely. And so we had to change our focus and pivot and move fast and change processes, change exceptions to policy to get to modernization. That activity taught us a whole lot about where we need to go. And we have been using that knowledge and information readily, steadily. On the innovate track, what we learned is that we need to innovate everywhere, and so innovation being its own pillar didn't make sense. We've got to have an innovation mindset. And then on defend, what we learned is that we need to get broader than defense. Data and workforce were subordinate activities. They needed to pivot. Data in particular needed to pivot as our star of the show, our actor. And so we headed over to ISV 2.0. Next slide, and you'll take it. So Barry's going to talk about ISV 2.0, overarching.
Sure. So some of those lessons learned were that the original pillars made a lot of sense at the time, but they just needed to be modified slightly. So modernize has become optimize, because modernize is, okay, I'm going to put all the new stuff in, but we can't forget we have to turn off the old things, right? And DoD, as they say, and Ms. Beavers, the acting DoD CIO, said yesterday, what we all know, right? In DoD, we're great at putting in new things. We really suck at turning off old things. So optimize is about making sure we focus on the full life cycle. Make sure that what we're delivering works for the warfighter, and that the old things that are still hanging around we get rid of so that we can reinvest for the future. In defend, we ended up looking reactive, right? When you're defending against something, it means that it's kind of already happened to you. So secure gets us left of boom. It makes sure that we're thinking about security up front in the design. We're ready at all stages of the life cycle, and that we're thinking about cybersecurity as a core function, not as something extra that you bolt on later. And then finally, decide, as Jane said, data is the star of the show, right? The whole point is to get data into the hands of people who need it so they can make good decisions. So instead of just data, which is interesting, decide is relevant. That means we're actually making decisions and moving the needle. So all of the individual activities under there we'll talk about as we go through today, but underpinning the whole structure is innovation, because as a pillar, it was kind of split off as like this extra thing that you do over here. Innovation has to occur across all three of these pillars. We have to innovate constantly. Things change so fast in our environment that if we're not getting ahead of it, we're not thinking about it in a structured way, we're already shooting behind the duck. So finally, workforce is still an underpinning of all of this. Our people are our biggest asset. We have to make sure that they are empowered and enabled to move forward on all three of these pillars.
So ISV 2.0 in summary is really just one, getting capability to the warfighter. That is our key mission. This is not enterprise versus tactical. It is a continuum. IT needs to be treated as a strategic platform in the Department of Navy, not something that we do in every program in a different way, but that we've strategically thought about it and are delivering those core capabilities that allow other programs to accelerate and deliver capability to the warfighter at the tactical edge as quickly as possible. It is also about being good at the business of IT. And so we spend a lot of time with industry partners, with Gartner and others, talking about best practices and processes that we should be adopting and utilizing in our ecosystem that allow us to move at the speed where technology is going. And that's the other piece of ISV 2.0, is not to stay and sustain the things that we've had for the last 15, 20 years. I think Matt Schwartz said to us yesterday that we've got sailors age 22 working on systems that are 27 years old and plus. That cannot be the way we treat this space. And so we have got to change the way we deliver IT, change the way that we fund and resource IT so that we can move inside the POM cycle, because our cyber operators get votes on what we're going to be doing. And sometimes we have to pivot tomorrow because of something that happened today. And so we've got to make sure that our ecosystem and our partners in the Secretariat and the service and the Navy and Marine Corps can work with us to make that happen. And that was the last thing I'll say overall, is that what you're going to hear Barry and I talk about in each of these pillars are things that we are going to guide and shape. They cannot be done without the help of all of you, without the help of industry, the help of our Navy and Marine Corps counterparts in our Secretariat, and sometimes the other services in DoD CIO. We have got to make change happen. Change is not something that we can do on our own. We're small, we're mighty, but we don't have all of the capability inside the DON CIO to make these things happen on our own. Next slide. So Barry, why don't you talk about some of the key points of our optimized pillar?
Sure. So right up on the upper left is the thing that we're all, the shiny object, right? Modernize the IT environment. It's still the core of what we need to do. Technical debt is eating our lunch every day. So modernizing and developing modern service delivery capabilities to move forward are still a huge priority within the optimized pillar. We need to do so smart. We need to do so informed by where technology is taking us, and we need to do so in concert with our operational counterparts from both the straight operator side of the house as well as man, train, equip. We got to make sure what we're putting out there is usable when it gets out there, it's maintainable, it's sustainable. So it's partnering with operators, it's partnering with the acquisition community, it's making sure that what we're modernizing makes sense, it's the right priority, and it's getting after the most important mission sets that we have in front of us. So modernize is the thing that's kind of like, yeah, all right, duh, we've been doing that for a while. But it's got to be supported by a bunch of other capability sets around there. In the upper right, we're talking about ensure access to needed spectrum. We talked yesterday at the Don IT West sessions about spectrum. It's kind of that boring thing that everybody's like, yeah, okay, well, that's interesting, but I want the shiny thing in front of me. Without spectrum, none of this works. Without spectrum, we cannot communicate. And spectrum as an asset is in front of everybody's mind right now. There are constant conversations about how we manage spectrum across the board. It's a finite asset. It's something we need to protect. It's something that we need to defend. It's something that we need to share, but we need to share smart. So as we move forward, from a Department of Navy perspective, we defend the Navy's ability to use that spectrum through policy, through discussions with industry partners, and to talk about how to use it smart, how to use the capacity that's available to everybody, and do so sharing dynamically so that our sailors can train like they fight. Because the last thing we want to do is put in place restrictions that mean we cannot train our sailors on how to use those core capabilities that they're going to use in conflict. If we can't train in CONUS to be ready to fight in the WES, then we've already failed. So our job at Don CIO is to forcefully advocate for spectrum, with DoD, with our industry partners, and all the way up through the federal government to make sure that we're defending the ability of sailors to do their job in the field.
And so if you need taglines on Spectrum, we want to dynamically Spectrum share. We do not want to vacate. The Navy wants to stay right where they are. It's too costly. We don't have the time to move out of Spectrum. Spectrum is not infinite, right? We got to figure out with our industry partners how to optimize the utilization of the spectrum that we have and that they have. So those are kind of the key messages that we hope that you all will carry forward. Barry, do you want to talk a little bit about, in particular, some of the things that we're doing and modernize the information environment, like what we're doing with the digital environment? If you want to talk about what's coming this year?
Certainly. So one of the things that we've worked on over the last 4 years, I think everybody's familiar with flank speed and the successes that we've seen there in pushing out capability faster to the entire environment. Well, right now, that's starting to evolve to a much more granular level, moving from just the cloud to managing endpoints directly, allowing people to connect to their information from wherever they are securely. The tagline about move data around to where it needs to be securely is absolutely the core of how we're moving forward strategically. As Nautilus comes on board and we start shifting from our legacy IT model in the enterprise to a much more modern delivery where people can access their information from anywhere on a managed secure device is a huge game changer for the Navy as a whole. Additionally, working with our Marine Corps counterparts to bring together the capability sets that they've put in place in their Office 365 environment along with the Navy's Office 365 environment, working together so that we can share information between the fleet and the Fleet Marine Force as we move forward is driving the whole paradigm for the DoD when it comes to working together across services. And then to build on that, taking the capability sets that we've proven out and that we've delivered for folks here in CONUS and on the enterprise level and pushing it out to the tactical edge is a huge priority. As Jane mentioned earlier, that's really what matters. We've got to get those capabilities out to the warfighter. So putting these things out on ships. Prototyping last year at Dawn IT East, we had conversations with then Commander, now Captain Kevin White on the USS Abraham Lincoln over teams underway in the middle of the Pacific. We can do that now. We have the capability sets, we have technology that empowers all that. So we've learned from these prototypes, now we have to figure out how to scale it. So when we talk about modernizing the environment, it's understanding the mission set, aligning the technology to the use case, testing the hell out of it, and then figuring out how to scale.
And the last thing I'll say on modernizing the information environment, it's not about everyone doing their own thing for their unique piece of the puzzle, stovepipe piece of the puzzle. We have to think enterprise. And enterprise doesn't mean just the business side, it means end to end. And when I say that, things like moving to enterprise services, we've initiated, I think, 5 so far. NIST would be, Naval Identity Service would be one of them. Moving and Naval Enterprise Service Desk is the other. That thing's great. So if you need a service desk, it's part of your program. Go talk to the NESD team. We are moving to enterprise services to the maximum extent we can. Buy and build once, use often is kind of our tagline. We will, of course, entertain more than one if there's a need, a warfighting mission need for it, but really want to hone in on shrinking our attack surface and delivering high-quality enterprise services that allow our sailors and our acquirers to go faster. And then the other thing, adopt cloud service, adopt cloud. We want you to go to the cloud. We've got some outstanding cloud platforms. Flank Speed Azure would be one, but we want to have cloud by type and by impact level, but we don't want 100 landing zones per type of cloud. And so we are going to really work hard with the ecosystem to drive to a cloud architecture that is highly ready, available, usable, easy to get into, and secured by our cyber operators, because that's what's important. They need to be able to see into those cloud workloads. I'm going to pivot now and talk a little bit about the stuff that's on the bottom. Managing our business mission area as a portfolio. Decision-ready information from our log world, from our personnel world, from our financial world are very important for making strategic decisions about where we're headed investment-wise. Today, they are very functionally driven stovepipes. We need to rethink how we deliver the business mission area as a portfolio that is integrated, interoperable, that is optimizing our spend that is fully funded and that the functionals are accountable for what's getting delivered, because it's not just a system that's getting delivered, it's the .mlpf, it's a capability. And so we are working with Beth Caswell, who is our lead here, and with the entire department on driving to a new governance, lifecycle governance model for the business mission area. And a big part of that is not just for the business mission area, but across our ecosystem, is cattle driving. You've heard us talk about cattle drive before. We got to get rid of our technical debt. We need to move to new modern things. We cannot be spending money on the old and the new. How do we drive down the old, drive out of the old and move to the new, and do that in a smart, strategic way? And the first area we're really going to focus on there is the data analytics environment, of which, if the spend analysis is correct, we spend way too much on data analytics environments and need to move to a cohesive strategy and deliver that so we get the data transparency and the decision advantage that we need from our data. I think we're done with the, and the outcomes on the right that you can see. I think we're done with this one. Let's move to secure. And I think you're going to talk about zero trust.
So zero trust, love that buzzword, right? Everybody's heard it. Everybody's kind of sick of hearing about it. Zero trust is not a thing. It's a way of doing business, right? And so we've learned a lot over the last 4+ years about what it means to be zero trust. You don't just build it and throw it out there. You have to practice it. We've had the opportunity to demonstrate what right looks like in a zero trust environment, working with the DoD Zero Trust Portfolio Management Office and doing the first assessment in DoD against what zero trust looks like. 151 out of 152 activities validated. So we've been able to show how you do it and how you show that you do it. So now it's how do we build on that, right? That's only in one place. It's in one environment. It's a great achievement, but we've got to do more. We have a mandate to meet the basic zero trust requirements by 2027. That is really fast. That's really hard. And we have a lot of work to do. The example that we've shown through the assessments that were done last year will help inform all of the networks and programs that have to have work to do on that. Core identity services being a key to how you move forward in that area. But we do not have time to waste. We have to move at speed to get after this. And beyond that, start thinking about our weapon systems, our IoT, the other areas inside our environment that are really hard when it comes to controlling, managing data around them. So one of the things that we're prioritizing this year as we move into ISV 2.0 is thinking through how we apply the lessons learned from our zero trust journey in the enterprise to these other really tough problems, working very closely with the principal cyber advisor. We just had a conversation upstairs about that, on applying some frameworks and some approaches to things like IoT, to things like weapon systems, so that we can start iterating on that, seeing what works, understanding the constraints of very not fault-tolerant environments where you can't put a tap in the line, that kind of stuff, and figuring out how we get to zero trust in those areas. Similarly, as we move to zero trust, we're going to pivot our approach from a compliance mindset to a readiness mindset, right? Cyber ready is all about being ready all the time, right? ATOs are interesting. They tell you about a point in time. It does not tell you that you're secure. Compliance does not secure your environment. We have demonstrated through the last couple of years of our zero trust journey that this is what it looks like when you know what's going on at every level. Device, identity, network, state of the devices on that network, the applications, the data, every level has to be looked at. All that telemetry has to be assessed, and you have to make good decisions on the fly. So moving from a compliance mindset to a readiness mindset requires all of that data, and it requires us to shift our approach out of the traditional RMF and into a cyber-ready posture.
Yeah, and if you said this already and I missed it, congratulations and kudos to the Flank Speed team, because we are the first zero trust platform that met. You said this already?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I missed it. So my head is thinking too far ahead. So, but congratulations to the Flank Speed team, because it was a group effort, team effort with our industry partners and with our cyber command and with our PEO and requirements owners and resource sponsors, all working together at the same time, not in a linear fashion, to drive fast and get this done. It is a feat to be marveled at, and we're going to do more of that. So put down your seatbelts. Get in the car and put on your seatbelts.
Yep.
And so in addition to Zero Trust and Cyber Ready, the other two pieces of the secure platform are partnering to secure the DIB. That's small business, big business, we care. We want you to be cyber secure. That's important to you, it's important to us. We care about what our industry is doing with encryption, and so we've got a lot of initiatives happening in this space to improve, again, small businesses' ability to leverage our ecosystem if they can't afford their own. To work with we just had a great conversation with the aviation partners about how we can build shared environments to do development in that are cyber secure, that meet both of our needs. So lots of work going on in that space. I would thank Jack Summers in particular on the aviation work. He's doing great work leading for us in that area. And then the final piece is managing cybersecurity as a shared capability portfolio. For the last, I don't know how many years we've been talking about cybersecurity. It has really been what we tell programs you must do. You got to go make your thing cyber secure. What we have missed is the opportunity to really build this as a core capability of the department, understanding how cyber operators want to maneuver in the space from the network on up to the most exquisite weapon system, and what kinds of functions, roles, processes that they need to do that, what kind of data do they need to do that, and what kind of systems do they need to do that. Instead of everyone trying to solve this for themselves, how can we economize, how can we optimize our cybersecurity capabilities and get the most out of them for the least amount of money? And so this is about getting leaders together, talking about what we're doing today, what we need to be doing going forward in the future, putting plans together, talking about cybersecurity holistically as an investment in the Department of Navy. Where can we take opportunity and risk for improving our ability to secure, again, from the transport layer on up.
It's something that we heard yesterday
Yeah, go ahead.
from the executive director at Fleet Forces Command, Matt Swartz. He came and challenged all of us as a community based on a few key data points. And the one that strikes us in relation to managing cybersecurity is the results of cybersecurity inspections in the fleet. Programs of record meet the standard only 50% of the time. Half the time they do not meet the standard. They do not provide effective cybersecurity. And that is one of the reasons we have to manage this as a portfolio. Leaving every program to figure it out on their own simply does not work. If we do not bring this all together, we will continue to fail and we will continue to place our sailors at risk. So we absolutely have to do this, not just from an economic perspective, but from a mission perspective.
Excellent. Next slide.
All right.
Okay. Our cyber workforce. This is a supporting pillar, a supporting foundational need. Our workforce is critically important. This workforce is hot, hot, hot. Everybody wants people with these skill sets. And so we've got to, again, we're going to talk at the end a little bit about innovation, but we have to show them that we are all in on innovation and we want to hear from them and we want to do things differently. We also have to make sure that they've got the training that they need, that they have the work opportunities that will keep them interested in our portfolio, and that we can retain them and move them to more responsible areas. This is, again, core to elevating the importance of the entire IT ecosystem, cyber and IT, as a core strategic platform that deserves the best world-class workforce. And so we are unfortunately behind in this space and working hard to catch up. The Cyber Accepted Service is helping us really get better granularity at our work, at the types of workforce that we need. And we've got some great people working, in particular in N26 and the Marine Corps on this topic. But we are dedicated to making sure that our workforce is trained and ready to take on the challenges.
Yep. And part of that is understanding where we are And the team that's been working on this is doing a lot of very groundbreaking work in terms of identifying where folks are, what skills they have, and not just sort of the traditional cybersecurity work roles, but really getting down into the details about how they do their work and how that is evolving at a rapid pace to change with the technology environment. And so as they're working through that, where are we? It helps us understand the big gaps and prioritize where we need to either retrain our workforce, support those who have those skill sets and move them into new positions where they can be more effective, or even come up with new paradigms where we can attract that talent from whatever source it can be. And that talent doesn't all have to be government, right? We need to also understand and leverage every particular opportunity, whether it's our warfare centers, our contractor partners, to get the workforce in the right place to do the job that they need to do. So looking at it from the, oh, we have to solve this all for ourselves is not the approach. The approach is understand what we need, identify the sources of talent where we can find them, get them on task, and move them out.
And what I'm learning about that is that they are everywhere in the Department of Navy at warfare centers that are not aligned to the PEO digital portfolio. And so we see you, we want some of you, you might be hearing from us. Next,
Okay.
we are missing one
Yep,
slide.
we're missing, well, so there we go.
No, we're missing the data slide.
I know, it's not
Okay.
there. So,
Okay.
we did a little pivot right before this with our slides. So Decide did not get to show up in here, but we're going to talk to it. The key with Decide is you got to make sure that the data is good, right? And so there's a huge initiative right now to ensure that we understand what our data is and where it is and what it is, right? Because data in context is what matters. And so the team has been going through looking at our data strategy, partnering with mission organizations. We were just talking to Admiral Goucher across the way. They're making some huge strides in the submarine community about understanding their data, understanding how to use it well, practicing with tools to understand how to make better decisions with that data. So we plan to continue accelerating that and moving forward with them. But that's one mission use case. There are thousands. So one of the things that we've been focused on in very recent days is understanding, and Jane mentioned it earlier, like all the buzz around AI and LLMs and all the rest of that stuff. In the past, with cloud, with DevSecOps, we were like, let's let folks innovate, let's let 1,000 flowers bloom and see what wins. Well, all we got was 1,000 flowers and a lot of chaos. And we're still trying to herd that together and make some sense of it. So with AI and with LLMs, we're moving forward in a much more deliberate manner. We're partnering with CDAO at the DoD level. We're understanding the use cases up front. We're looking at the models as they come out. We're understanding and empowering folks with a common platform to get after instead of go build your own or go build your own. We want to make sure we do this deliberately, we do it smart. And one of the things that's very, very key in this space is understanding what are the pitfalls that people can run into and helping them avoid them up front, right? It's great to fail fast, but in some cases, if you fail fast, it can be catastrophic, right? You can learn a lot from it, but it can be something you really, really don't want to run into. So as we go through this process, communication is key. We're working very closely with our partners in the Navy who are supporting Project 33 and all the priorities that the CNO's put out there, with our Marine Corps partners who are working on the Commandant's planning guidance and driving forward for force design, understanding those use cases and giving them the tools and the right standards and guardrails so that they can go forward and meet mission.
So yeah, so the other part of this portfolio, I like to think about the Decide pillar in three ways: prepare, connect, use. Barry just talked about the use side, where how we're going to leverage analytics. You know, we talk about this a lot. We've been doing AI for a long time. AI is not new. The new thing is the large language modeling and the commercial space that's coming there to help us move faster. And I'm psyched about that because one of the things we have to do on the prepare side in order to leverage all that goodness is tag our data, understand its provenance so that we can actually apply large language models effectively. Guess what? Large language models might help us tag our data. So we have got to work in concert with this technology. We cannot spend 15 years. NSA took 15 years to tag all their data. We do not have that time if we really want to take advantage of these capabilities and bring more capability to the fleet faster. And so we will be focusing, our team will be focusing on how we prep data, prepare data, tag data, understand its provenance, so that we can then take advantage of all the things that large language models potentially could provide us.
Yep.
I think that is it on data. And so We're going to end on innovation, Barry.
So innovation is the core, or is important across all of our pillars. But innovation can't be done in a vacuum. One of the things that we learned very carefully over the last 4 years is that innovation that is set loose can do awesome things, but those awesome things then have to be put together, and so it makes our job even harder. So we came up with what we're calling an innovation toolkit and a structured approach to innovation that is going to help focus all that energy, still bring in all those good ideas, but do so in a way that guides us forward to things that can scale and be deployed. Right? Horizon 3 being new ideas, things that are coming in from industry. Gather all those things up, watch what's happening in the industry, watch what's happening out there, and see which ones are starting to show promise, and then immediately plug them into Horizon 2, where we're investing our own money, piloting those things against specific mission use cases. Those use cases can then be used to prove out whether that technology really does what we think it can, or are we going down the wrong path? If we are, we can drop it and move forward. But if it has promise, then we're building those pilots, we're building those prototypes in such a way that they inform scale. How do we take that and then deploy it out to 750,000 sailors and Marines all over the globe? Because if we cannot scale a capability, then it's really not any good, right? And that scale doesn't mean just size, right? It means all the .MLPF, sustainability, maintainability, workforce training, who's going to run it, where they're going to run it from. All of those factors have to be considered before we can scale effectively. So when we look at the innovation pipeline and you see how that kind of runs through, the idea is get things into scale as quickly as you possibly can, and then immediately pivot the things that are there now from Horizon 1 to Horizon 0, meaning cattle drive. Get them out of the environment so that we can take those resources and reinvest them in the next things that are coming along. It is cyclical, it's life cycle. We've understood this for a long time, that things have to roll off in order to roll back on, but things are so much faster now that we really need to give everybody an engine by which they can modernize and optimize across the board.
So the other part of innovation is, in addition to this technology innovation and moving fast, is process innovation. And so we have this capability, we call them Agile Design. We have these publications we produce called Agile Design Concepts, and all of those are about best practices in this space. And they are not directives, they're not policies, they're just a quick read about how industry does this or how best practices, sometimes they're Department of Defense best practices, are helping us move faster in this space. I highly recommend them for you all if you're working in this space to understand something that we're promoting. And so with that, the other thing I would say is in innovation, we're obviously doing this with all of our partners, industry partners, as well as our acquisition partners and service partners. So we really thank you for your time. This is the end of our conversation that we're spitting out to you. If you have questions for us, we're happy to take them.
Microphones are here, so if you have questions, please come up and ask.
We can shut down the house.
Oh, we got somebody. All right. Or not.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kareem McCoy, Chief Data Strategist at G2 Ops. And I'd like to talk a little bit, or ask a couple of questions, one question, about Cyber Ready Initiative. And earlier today, Ms. Rathbun, you basically said, I'm sorry to quote people because I do this kind of thing, I'm a nerd, but it said, be part of the pilot and you don't have to do an ATO. And so we have been embarking on a Cyber Ready Initiative with POIWS1. We're about to finish that first pilot or transformation program, about to embark on another one. And when you speak about being able to have a process that can be evaluated, do you have any insight in terms of what type of criteria might be a part of an evaluation process? So being able to accept risk, but having something, I'm sorry, as a data person, quantitatively,
Yes, yep.
we can understand what that process could look like. I know there are many machinations of what that could be across the board, but any insight in that respect?
Yeah, so sure. Kind of 4 areas that we're looking for a program to demonstrate. The first would be that you're doing continuous threat analysis. And so I think you probably know Vin Mehta. So, and he's working very hard with us on how to be able to bring that into the testing cycle and really demonstrate that you have a handle or a beat on threat analysis. And it's being fed by updated sources, and you can see if you are impacted. The other area that we would like you to be measuring is your ability to do continuous monitoring, of which threat analysis is a part of. But are you typical patching and scanning? But how do you show me that in real time? How do you show the cyber operators that in real time? The other piece is showing a measure of risk, evaluating how you will risk to mission is really the key here. Show how where you have risk and what the impact to mission is because of that risk, so that you, along with your operators, your warfighters, your TICOMs, can make that decision together that yes, the risk level is acceptable. Those risk levels will not be standard across mission enclaves. They will be different by mission enclave. So those are 3 areas that we're looking for. And then of course there's the piece that says your people have taken their cybersecurity awareness training, and you can demonstrate that everybody's up to date, and that your workforce, and that you are producing this telemetry we just talked about, and that your process will get approved is that a team, this is in theory because we haven't done it yet, because we have not yet, again, I had mentioned today also that flank speed is very close to becoming cyber ready. A team made of cyber operators, I'm pointing at one, and folks from the cyber ready group can evaluate what you're demonstrating and say, yes, you've met our conditions, your process is cyber ready. If you follow this process, and you're going to get inspected randomly all the time, and you keep following this process, you are cyber ready. You're living, breathing cyber ready.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Just to emphasize the point on that, though, that last point, so, our folks are conditioned to think that once I've gotten to an ATO, it's a finish line, right? It's an end. Like, got it, right? I'm done. Cyber ready is not done. Cyber ready is never done. It's always constantly changing, and it's always constantly evaluated. So if you're thinking about your process, you need to understand that there is no end. It is constantly evaluated, and readiness is something we measure all the time. So it's a big mindset shift for folks that are used to an RMF or an ATO or a compliance-based process. But in the end, this is reality, right? We're being tested constantly by the adversary, and so if we don't test ourselves, we're already behind the game.
Thank you for your presentation. I was really interested in what you said about zero trust is not it's a process, not a thing, and we're going to get there by 2027. Does that include the Navy shore infrastructure, like the facilities that NAVFAC operates, and is it funded? Is that goal funded? Thank you.
That's a great question. So zero trust is not something you buy, is what I was going to talk about, right? It is, there are a lot of tools out there saying, I'm going to give you zero trust. Well, you're going to give me some information, right? And that's goodness. I need that information. I need that telemetry in order to make decisions. But zero trust incorporates activities, right? It's a very operational mindset. It's about understanding the identity. It's about understanding the device. It's about understanding the network. It's about making risk decisions when the access request comes through. It's understanding your application layer. It's all those things, right? It's about seam store and automation and orchestration and blah, blah, blah. I can go on for hours. But the point being, in the information technology environment, enterprise IT, places where we're already leveraging cloud, already leveraging some of these tools, it's kind of, all right, there's a clear path there. I know what I need to do. I've got an operational component. We've shown what it looks like. Okay, now I can build on that and I can go. So we're actually fairly confident that we can make 2027 for our networks and our IT systems and sort of our enterprise. You asked about the hard part, right? And I talked earlier about operational technology, IoT, other facilities, right? These are the items that are non-traditional data flows, right? And oh, by the way, they don't like being interrupted, right? And interrupting an HVAC system and the thing goes down in the building and everybody's sweating is inconvenient, horrible, not fun, we don't like it, right? Interrupting a data flow so that commands to a missile don't get there on time, that's even worse, right? So we have to do this smart. We have to understand the constraints of the environment, the mission set, everything that's around it, and then take the zero trust principles and apply them smart, right? There's a lot of ways to understand identity. There's a lot of ways to understand the devices that are in a particular chain. There's a lot of ways to understand your network, to put controls in place, and not traditional RMF controls, right? But actual controls, understanding real-time device state in such a way that you don't interrupt those flows, right? And so we're working very closely with our counterparts in the facilities community, in the shipboard community. Ms. Schumann was talking earlier today. There's a framework called Mosaics, which helps you understand it's a framework. It's not a direction set. It's not a set of controls. These are the things we need to look at, the activities that we need to do in order to meet these standards. And that's how we iterate and we grow and we learn as we go through that. Do I think we're going to be at zero trust for facilities in 2027? No. No way, right? But we're going to drive to get to zero trust in the places we know we can do it now, meet that 2027 mandate, and then identify the gaps and put a plan in place to get to the rest of it, including combat systems, including weapon systems, including OT, all those kinds of things that are actually really super hard based on the lessons we learned from the enterprise.
The only thing I'll add there is we're taking a phased approach to things that are not networks. DoD said get to networks by 2027. With everything else, what can you do? Look at your ecosystem. Where do you really need to apply zero trust because of where you sit in the ecosystem? And we said everyone should be working on identity. We already have a naval identity service that you can leverage. So that should be the relatively easy button. Nothing's ever easy in the Department of Navy. But take a phased approach to the pillars of zero trust that you could actually apply to your system. And that was mandate given by the Navy and Marine Corps to their programs, and we under our direction. And that'll be our path. We'll chip away at it. I've already let the DoD CIO know there's no way the Navy is going to be 100% zero trust by 2027 for every aspect. So.
Well, ma'am, sir, thank you guys both very much for the talk, because I know we all appreciate it. You'd mentioned during the presentation, like, hey, we've got these things and we're going to test the crap out of it, which is great. We got to do that. I think testing is kind of the redheaded stepchild of the whole process, right? So, in a process that traditionally is so manual and in the Navy takes so long, what are the plans that you guys have, the ideas that you have around how you're going to make that, move faster, what you're going to do to help accomplish all of these wonderful goals that you have, because they're great. Do you have some ideas and some frameworks and some ways that industry might be able to help you get to where you want to go to test the functionality, the data, et cetera, and make sure you can get there on time?
Very good question. It goes back to that comment I made before about scale, right? Scale is hard. And the testing world, right, if you think about it from a ship, an aircraft, submarine, right? We have operational test and evaluation processes. Like, we will not send a submarine to sea unless we know that it will not sink. Unless you want it to sink, right? Kind of thing. Anyway, you know what I mean, right? It's not, subsafe is a thing. We've been doing that for decades. We understand how to test things and make sure that they work, right? Rigor matters. In the IT world, unfortunately, we tend to skip those things, right? The term minimum viable product is way too overused, right? And I'm an agile guy. I've been doing it for decades. It's useful, but it's sometimes used as a substitute for rigor and actual testing. So one of the things that we did as we started moving forward in our zero trust journey was thinking up front about how you can clearly demonstrate through adversarial testing, through threat informed analysis, through constant data maneuverability and monitoring, that you don't think, but the state of your system, right? We know all those components. We know that they're supposed to be like this, and they look like this, right? And use the tools at our disposal. I mean, that's a ton of data, and trying to have a human being assess all that stuff in their head at the speed it's coming at them is simply impossible. So using some of the tool sets that we've got out there, using machine learning and AI to actually process all that stuff and say, hey, this doesn't look right. You should probably look at this, right? Human-machine teaming is the way to go, and testing is all part of that. When we went forward and did all of these assessments and we say, hey, we made it to zero trust, what was that? That was red teams coming at the platform and trying to break in, right? Using all the techniques at their disposal. And through that process, nothing is perfect, and our platform was not perfect when we started. I think we were assessed by the red team no fewer than 18 times over the last 4 years, on purpose, and we asked them to, because we wanted to make sure that we identified all the places where it fell short. A lot of times it was technical, a lot of times it was just people, right? And they weren't paying attention, or they didn't understand what they were doing, or they made a decision that was uninformed. That's great. We understood what those things were, and we iterated. And so it's a critical element of how we move forward. is, the comparison I make here is an industry. You look at somebody like Netflix or some of these larger streaming companies, right? They really don't go down that much, right? You ever wonder why? If you guys, and I'm a big fan of some of, reading some industry stuff and learning what I can, but there's a technique called chaos engineering where an organization will break themselves on purpose to see if their resiliency plan actually works. And they don't do it in test, they do it in production. Now, I'm not saying we're going to go do that in the Navy in production, but I'm saying we should learn a lesson from that our adversaries are testing us in production every day. So if we don't find it for ourselves, they will find it for us. And we would much rather find it for ourselves.
Yeah, so I'm just going to add to that real quick. We are all open if you've got ways and ideas to automate testing. Especially in our weapon systems, a lot of the deliverables we get from our systems integrators are not actually conducive to cyber testing. And so I mentioned a guy at PEOWS who's doing God's work on designing automated ways to test. We want that. We want it to be always, right? We should be always testing, and whether my system is at sea working or it's in development. And so we are open to ideas about how we can speed up this space so that we have better telemetry, better understanding, more automated ways of making sure that we're cyber testing. The other thing that industry can do is bring us cyber secure capabilities, like that we can look at, open up your back door, as my friend Nick Goddard would say, let us in to evaluate how you're doing things. So that we can say, yeah, you know what, you're meeting our standards. This is a product that we might want to be leveraging here. So that's the other piece that you can bring to the table.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
All right. And I think that's all we have time for.
Getting the hook?
Thanks for joining us today. And if you have any other questions, we'll be around.
Thank you.